Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to CXC 2021. I'm so glad to see how many people came out to participate in this workshop today with the amazing author, Shary Flenniken. I've seen a lot of you at other CXC events this weekend, and it's a pretty amazing thing that this group of volunteers have come together to make. Can we give a round of applause for the organizers of CXC, all the volunteers? You know, a story I tell a lot is I just imagine this is our 7th year, and there are young people growing up in this town who are going to take comics for granted. That is an achievement. You know, they're going to go to college, they're going to meet their roommates, they're going to share stories like you do with roommates, where do you come from? And they're going to say, what, you didn't have a free comics festival that came to your town every year? What's wrong with you, right? You're making that possible, CXC. So, and also, these cool events couldn't happen without the support of our sponsors. CXC is a 501c3 nonprofit organization, so in order to do this stuff, we rely on individual donations and grants, and then also corporate sponsorship. And I want to take this moment to thank these sponsors for making this weekend possible. And also our partners. I'm sure who here went to the Alison Bechdel event at CCAD last night? Yeah, wasn't that amazing? That was really cool. And then all the events happening at the Billy Ireland Cartoon Library and Museum. All of these partner organizations create spaces and collaborate with CXC to make these meaningful events. And there are exhibitions happening at the Columbus Museum of Art, the Billy Ireland Cartoon Library and Museum, and at the OSU Urban Art Space right after this event today. And Cartoon Crossroads Columbus acknowledges that the ancient ancestors of the Eastern Woodlands tribes, now referred to as the Adena and Hopewell cultures, inhabited the land we know as Ohio. Their descendants include the living nations of the Shawnee, Miami, Wyandot, Delaware, and Seneca Cayuga. We honor and respect the diverse indigenous peoples connected to this place where we gather. So now it's time to introduce Shary Flenniken, the author of Trots and Bonnie, which is going to be available for sale right after this workshop, but also just a really dynamic and engaging human being who you're in for an experience today, is ready to grapple with the question, I don't know, let's find out. And that's a spirit that I love.
And finish that sentence.
Let's finish that sentence together as a team, right? So yes, without any more bluster and brouhaha from me, how about we welcome Shary Flenniken?
Hi. Thank you, Jersey. Thank you, everybody, and especially the technicians who are filming this. And that they allow me to say, if you don't really know who I am, I'm on YouTube now. I have an interview on YouTube. You can find out more than you want to know. But I will tell you this, that I teach sometimes middle school students. Sometimes I'll teach a class from 4-year-olds to 80-year-olds all at the same time. And the interesting thing about cartooning is it's so basic. Some of the things are so basic that everyone can apply what they're learning. So that makes it fun for me and for them. And so it's possible that I'm going to tell you a lot of stuff that you already know since you're already avid cartoonists. And my feeling is when I go to classes, like big classes that are put on, for people to learn something like how to write soap operas, I'm happy if I hear one thing that I didn't already know. I feel satisfied. So I hope you guys can feel satisfied with what we're going to do here today. And the first thing, so are there any questions right off the bat? Because I'm open to that. Okay, if you need to know something, hold up your hand. I'll try to get to you if I can, and I will repeat your question so that it gets recorded. So the first thing I want to know is how many of you watch Antiques Roadshow? How many of you have ever seen it? Okay, so you know how that goes when they have something, they have a painting and they want to authenticate the painting, so it's either worth $30 or $30,000. One of the things they look at is the signature. So if you don't know how important your signature is now, you should be learning that today, because you should sign, because look where you are. You are in a place where they have scribbles from famous artists, and you don't know if your thing is going to be your signature, your artwork is maybe valuable to say, like, let's say your grandchildren 1,000 years from now, 100 years from now, because your grandchildren aren't going to live that long. I just like to exaggerate sometimes. Okay, so 100 years from now, there's your scribbled artwork in your notebook, and they don't know if it's really you. So if you sign and date every scrap of paper you create, that will help your grandchildren or whoever that you love in the future be rich. So it's important to make people rich. That's what I feel. So I would like you all to just start today by putting your signature and today's date on your paper that's in front of you. And I don't insist that you put a copyright on it, because we're really talking about art today. We're not talking about whether you're going to need to copyright your character. But you guys, does everybody know? Does anybody here not know what a copyright looks like on a piece of artwork? I think you do. It's a C with a circle around it and the date. So you're welcome to put that on there too. And I guess one thing I call them glyphs. There's another name for it. It's when you take your initials and create a signature out of your initials. There's an artist named Jeff Jones who did that. I'll try to write his glyph the way that he did. He made a J. Can you see that from where you are? Okay. He made a J, and then he made it like an E and an O, and O got made somewhere here. I'm just going to do this as if he did it this way. I haven't seen it for a while. So, and then he would have an N, E, and then maybe like an S, like that. So that's really not Jeff Jones' signature, but let's do that. I think maybe he made the square be an O. But anyway, you get the idea. So if you can do that with your name, it's kind of hard to do it with my name, Flenikin, but I could take a shot at it. So if you don't want to put your name on something, you can put your glyph on it. So we're doing character design today. Is that, you understand why we're here? So the objective is to build a character that comes to life and is able to stay alive in comics. I have notes here, they're really big. So your character, to start here, just to warm up, it doesn't need to be human. It doesn't need to be humanoid. It doesn't need to be an animal. It could just be a shape. So I'm going to ask you guys to draw a very simple shape on your paper. And has anyone here seen the line and the dot, or the dot and the line, or romance and lower mathematics? Right on. So that's available, I think, on YouTube now. And it's a darling story of a romance between a line and a dot, and how they fall in love and they break up and they get back together again. And the interesting thing is, it's like they're just symbols as characters, and it's a very emotional story. So it's a good example of how you can put that kind of emotional life into even something like a shape. And we're really just dealing with shapes when we draw. So especially if you're doing it in black and white, but color's the same way. The color itself is going to add another dimension to your shape. So does everybody have their shape drawn? Is anyone struggling with a shape? I'm going to draw a shape. I think I'm going to try to move all the way across the board today, so that's why I'm starting over here. So I'm going to draw a shape. Does anybody else have this shape? Yeah? Good. So what other shapes do you guys have? Anybody have a square? Anybody have a circle? Anybody have a cloud? What other shapes are there? Rectangle? A hexagon, all right. So we have a hexagon. So I would like to be able, I'm tethered, so I can't walk around and look at what you have. So I hope you guys will all be brave and call out what you have if you can. So the next thing we're going to do in order to bring this shape to life is we're going to have it say something. Do you have room on your papers to say something? So I'm going to do a dialogue balloon. And before you just write anything, I want it to be representative of the shape. In other words, my shape is going to say, I am ancient. It could say other things, but that's what I thought would be good for a triangle, a pyramid to say. So I am hoping, give it some thought, what your shape, your hexagon, might say. I can already think of some dialogue for the hexagon. So this should be something. Just don't, there's no right and wrong here. So you can get it wrong, or you can just blow me off if you want to. But I'd really like you to try that, because once you have your dialogue, somebody told me always cross your eyes so nobody can mistake them for a 1. And I write in caps. That's just my. And this character, if I wasn't trying to be simple here, I might say I'm feeling ancient, which would be even more expressive of age. And then you have to know how to spell words. That's tough. So here's a thing about dialogue balloons. I just outlined it, gave some white space around it. Someone told me that the way to draw a dialogue balloon, well, less than 10 words is a good hint. And then you go from, I'll do it with my blue pen. You find the center of your dialogue balloon. You see that blue thing? And then this thing doesn't really have a mouth yet, but it begs for a mouth. Oh no, but this is unhappy. The line goes from the center of your dialogue balloon to the mouth of your character, and then that's how you make the tail of your balloon. So people can, everything's about making your comic readable. Everything's about making your comic clear. That's why you don't want to misspell words. You want to have everything clear. You want to have lots of white space. You don't want to confuse people. And if it's not readable, no matter how artistic it is, I don't know, maybe they could enjoy it if they're stoned. People, your audience, if you have like a real stoned audience, you can make it really complicated and difficult to decipher. Or maybe they're just really intelligent, not stoned. So can everybody see that dialogue? Does everybody have some dialogue on their paper now? That would make me happy. I don't see any hands, so I guess you're still working. Oh, okay. So 3 people have their dialogue on there. But we're going to talk about the nature of your characters. Does everybody have a character right now? Hands? You've designed a character before. That's your thing. That's good. So one thing I want to point out is, like, when I first started drawing, I had no clue that I was still going to be drawing the same characters. Oh, Lord, I have to think how old I am. 50 years later. So you want to, I think it's not so much that you can plan for that, but it's so you have to keep in mind that your characters are going to evolve, and you want to be flexible too. And I'll just say something really important here, and that's the idea of garbage in, garbage out in your life. What you consume is really as important, if not more, than what you're going to be writing about. You have to know what's going on around you and really try to look for that, and not just look at other cartoonists. really look at knowledge and the world. So I'm going to tell you about how important a character is, just so you know this. I talk a lot, and I will apologize in advance you can just tell me to shut up and draw or something if you want, but I think you might be interested in some things. So there was this magazine called Travel Life magazine that came out a while ago. And I was in New York, and the art director of Travel Life called a whole bunch of different artists that you would know and asked them to do a page in Travel Life magazine, which was a magazine for travel agents specifically, and asked them to do a comic page, a comic story about something that travel agents would like to read. And a lot of people did their page. No one did what I did, which was, when I thought about it, I thought, I need a lot of work. So I'm going to take my shot here and do something that they may ask me to do again. What do you think that was? It was focus on the character, character-driven work. So that's why it's really important what we're talking about here, is to really recognize how important those characters are. So I created a character called Amy the Agent. It's not very complicated. There was an old cartoon called Abby the Agent, and so it was not even reminiscent of that. It was Amy the Agent, and she was the character, and her specialty was saying things like, "No problem." And they told us, like, you can't do a cartoon about like planes crashing or like really bad hotel rooms, because the travel agents didn't want to hear about that stuff. But I got to be in that magazine. Nobody else did. I got to be in that magazine continually because they fell in love with Amy the Agent, because she was a pretty good character. She was just a basic, nice person character who wanted to help people. And that was exactly what the kind of audience that they had. And it was the funny punchline to this is when they finally shut down the magazine, because the guy that like owned the publisher of all these magazines, specialty magazines that they were doing, lost a lot of money. He was spending a lot of money on putting the magazines together, and I was getting $300 a pop every time I did a 3-panel comic strip, or 3 or 4-panel comic strip. So I got $300 for it. The readership was 300 travel agents. Yeah. So, but it was really good while it lasted, and I still have the original art, so we'll see what happens with that. But I had fun because they let me do watercolor art, and so they started out with a lot of money, so they were fun to work for. So the other thing, so I really want to talk about the importance of your characters, because your characters are, doing a comic strip is just like doing a movie or a play, and you design your characters just like you're having, actors audition for you, or finding the right character for the story you want to tell. And so the point I want to make here is power. You have a lot of power. And that's the cool thing about comics, is that you have power over all that stuff. You're not delegating that to a casting director to tell you how to do. You don't have, well, you might have a publisher looking out over your shoulder about it, but probably not. You're probably just going to come up with that. And little kids even have this power. When they first start to draw, you'll see kids draw guns and cars and horses, and I myself was drawing brides with the outfits, And I think it's all about power. It's a way for little kids who are powerless, young children. They have no power at all, and they cannot put food in their own, well, they can put food in their mouth, but they literally can't take care of themselves. They literally need their parents. No matter how bad their parents are, they need them. And so they have a sense of power when if they're drawing a gun and they can design the gun, they have their neural networks are at work, making them feel more powerful even though they're not carrying a gun when they can draw it. I mean, that's an extreme example. Maybe it doesn't apply to every kid, and maybe it doesn't apply to every circumstance, but I think it may make you look at artwork in a different way if you think of it as people having that kind of power and control over that environment. Thank you for nodding your head at me. I like that. So when you're designing so we talked about how important it is to design a character like that and how much power you have when you design the character. So one way, when you write a film, so it's going to apply, and I'm just going to approach this like you're a blank slate. You don't already have something going in your strip. So, and you can take it from there or take it for what it is. But so when you design a character, it's very helpful. You really need to do this if you're writing a movie, to write their backstory. So write the story of the character, like where were they born, when were they born, who were their parents, what brought them to the point that you're going to start drawing them. Like when I took a class on this, I'm like, I'm going to do a story about the kid that was born at Woodstock, the only baby who was born at Woodstock, and like what he's like 20 years later. So I thought that would be really fun to explore somebody who evolved that way. And that I didn't write that movie, but I still think it's a great idea for a character. So you want to think about that. So even if you've got like a hexagon as a character right now, you want to think about that character's backstory of where they rolled in. I mean, were they planted on Earth by aliens and discovered by monkeys, or what happened? So I don't expect you to do that here, but make a note of it, that you want to write that backstory, because it's actually fun, and it'll get your creative gears going, and it'll help you. It won't just help you think about your character, it'll help you think about your story when you're thinking about where your character came from. And it'll flesh it out, and it'll make it real. I have a note here, do on board. So I don't think I'm going to do that. But, okay, so are we ready to roll on some drawing? Okay, so I would like you to kind of go along with me here. One thing is I use shapes to draw characters all the time, only that. Not everybody works that way, but what it does for me is it allows me to draw the same character over and over again and keep it relatively consistent from a distance or from a different angle. So that's why you know, with a head, I know people get taught this in school, you know, that you're going to draw, you're going to line up your ears and your eyes and your nose and your mouth, and that's easy. But then when you do an angle, you want to do an angle, it makes it easier to do that and have it work for you. So, and also it works for a profile too, although sometimes I do profiles with more than one circle because you have more angles. But it's still the same theory, like that. And so the body parts work the same way. So I'm just going to add a little body part here. You have the neck can be a cylinder, and then usually I'm either drawing circles for shoulders, depending on how complicated the character is. Sometimes with a guy, I will use more square characters right to start out. So this guy turns into more of a guy immediately when you start squaring off the shapes that he's built out of. And then what you're doing then, when you start working with shapes, is you're working with perspective. So you're able to, the front is here, the back is back here. So you've really got your standard cube, and then that will help you. Once you start doing that, that'll help you position your character on the page. So, and then, let's see, what am I going to do? Okay, so yesterday we did Mickey Mouse, right? Mickey Mouse is a really important corporate symbol. That's the nice part of him. And but he's literally made out of money. How many people know that? Okay, good. Not too many hands. So Mickey Mouse, I'm going to try to draw big, and I can already see I'm going to run out of room here because I want you to see how I'm doing this. If you take, I can't do this because I don't have money that's big enough. But if you happen to have a quarter in your pocket, you can draw a circle around it. And then you can take a nickel and put a nickel here, and then put another nickel here. And then you've got your basic mouse already. So forgive me for not being perfect, but after that, then you just draw some more shapes and you give them the old-fashioned pie eyes, and then the mouth, and then let's see here, there's a pie eye. So that's your Mickey. And then because I'm doing a dialogue balloon having to do with my shape, let's just say that. So do you want to see how to do the rest of them? Because I mean, he's those shapes that you see. So, but you can just, This is, I gotta say, this is really fun to do, like when you're in another country and you run into little kids, or even when you're here and you run into little kids and you draw Mickey Mouse. They have a lot of fun watching you do it. So, did everybody draw along with me there? I advise it highly because it's good. Okay, so one of the things about drawing, and I noticed this even with my characters, when somebody wants to draw my characters, they draw my characters looking like I first drew them when I was first learning to draw them. And it's because it's the muscles in your hand. My friend Dan he was drawing cartoons, and then he didn't make enough money doing it, so he became a garbage man. And he worked so hard with his hands lifting garbage cans and stuff that he couldn't draw anymore for a while because it built up the muscles in his hand for holding garbage cans and not for drawing. Yeah, exercising your fingers, but really just I think drawing the sweeping strokes, and I think that doing the thing when you're doing your shapes, doing around and around. And one exercise for lettering that I was told is to write this word over and over again, because it will exercise your hand to draw all the motions you need to draw capital letters. Anyway, there's some discussion about whether capital letters are still a good thing to put in your dialogue balloons, but I think they are, so I like them. I try to use them a lot. Actually, I try to vary a capital letter, like if I have to do narrative, which is not someone speaking, I might then do a different kind of lettering. So just FYI. So we are going to talk about the difference between men and women now, how to tell a man from a woman. This will be fun and very helpful for you to know. Not things are changing now socially, so this isn't exactly accurate today, but it's a way to draw a character so that people can grasp what you're trying to say. So I understand that genders are changing, and I struggle with pronouns, I must say, but I try. So anyway, so I'm going to draw a man out of shapes. So I'm going to give him probably a larger, tube-shaped neck with an Adam's apple, and then that boxy shape here, and then it's probably, and this is very helpful for me to move the character, to make the pelvic area as a box, because I can make that, I can adjust that box and it'll come out looking pretty realistic for the male, the way the male pelvis is. And then there are more cones here, and knees, you want to use those circles for joints. And again, getting down. But the feet are actually, feet are actually a thing. And feet, a lot of people don't draw feet in perspective. So I'm not going to, perspective's like a big deal, but like now you can find a lot of grids in a lot of software and stuff like that. You can draw your own grids and just go with the grids. But if you draw the foot out of shapes, it's really going to make it easier for you to put it in perspective, because I want to maybe do, it's easier to see it sideways. That's an ankle bone. But when you do that, and then you do the toes, that would be like standing, probably more like that. Tiptoe person. But the more likely you're going to put it in perspective like this and have your foot come down like that, and this will be here, and the toes would be there. So there you have like a reasonable, I'm going to draw a little Trots and Bonnie tennis shoe here, kind of, if I can show you how that works. Like that. And that's, and you would do, the other foot would be somewhere in alignment with that. But the point is that you can start drawing that foot with circles. So that's pretty much how he is. He's, well, see, he's not going to, oh, did I get an eraser? Okay. I'm tethered, but I think I can make it. Yes, there it is. Great. Oh, good. Oh, thank you so much. Okay. Sorry. So the way he stands is really important, the way men stand. So he's going to have a wider stance. Possibly even the fighting stance. And he's got his hands, same thing. If you're lazy like I am, you're not going to work on the hands too much. So we got that. And over here, see, it's like that, and here's that. Can you grasp that? So he's going to have, maybe he's going to have his shield. It would probably be the opposite way. His sword would probably be in this hand. So maybe he's got like some kind of club there, because he's a guy. He's got a hammer. There we go. And then he's also over here, he's got his, have to do research on swords to figure out how a real sword would look here, but he's kind of got that, and it's got a hilt. And then it runs over into too much space here, so I'm not going to do that. And then his face, where is he going to be looking? Is he probably not looking that way, because then he's going to get killed from this end. So he's going to be looking here, and he might be looking up. So I'm talking about penciling here. Now, this is not inked. So when you go in to ink this person, then that's when you start dressing them up in their clothes. And he could have a uniform. You know, there's a lot of different things that can happen here. So to be even more consequential, I will now draw a woman. I'm going to draw her bigger than he is. So starting with basically a circle, I'm going to neck here. Now, this is the interesting thing. This is not my original thing. Someone taught me this who is a good artist. And he said, when you draw a female, you draw the shoulders going in one direction and the pelvic line from those literally bones there in the opposite direction, because women stand differently than men do. I apologize if this offends anyone's gender, if they would rather be one or the other or whatever, but I think this is helpful even then. So here she is. So what this determines, because this line is here, it determines where the weight of her body is. So again, we're drawing shapes. And using circles at the joints. And here I'm going to use a little perspective on her foot. So the weight is on this foot, on this leg here. So this leg is going to be probably off the ground, or in this case, on the toe. Yeah, that works for me. She's got an outfit and some chest up there. So already she's starting to be in perspective. So her cone, here's her elbow. And she's going to be holding something. And she's going to be holding something else. She's a little bit turned to the side. And I don't know about you guys, but I do a lot of penciling, a lot of erasing, and a lot of sort of, this is where I'm doing, and that's why this is kind of messy. It's not perfect because I'm thinking as I'm drawing. And what that does is it's connecting my brain to my hand. And I'm letting my brain talk to my hand. I'm in my mind's eye, I'm seeing that character. I know what I want that character to be doing. So the penciling part is like the Zen part where I just allow it to flow onto the paper. I can't do anything wrong because I can always erase it. It's not carved in stone. Now that I use an iPad with Procreate, a $10 program, I can just erase the whole thing. It's much easier to make mistakes. So the ability to make mistakes is a gift. Whiteout was such a gift. And when I started out drawing, there wasn't any whiteout. You could erase, but it was pretty messy. So anyway, so that's why this is kind of like, that's a good thing. Your pencils should be messy. So okay, I'm just going to have her go like, I've got magic fingers of peace, and I am going to counteract the effect of your sword with my magic, peaceful fingers. So already I have like a superhero character here, this woman. And she's like, I'm happy. I'm always happy because I'm peace-loving. And it's easy for me to make peace, and it's hard for you. You're unhappy because you're angry all the time. And I'm happy because I'm peaceful. So right there, I have the seeds of what I think is a good story. I think it would be a great animated film. I think it's a great super character. And it's something that, I mean, I just came up with it talking to you. And that's why it's so wonderful to work with other people, because it stimulates your creativity so well. So thank you for that. Appreciate it. Gonna remember that. So, okay, so here's the other thing. This is good because I have an eraser now if I have to go back in the other direction. But now that we have this man and this woman, I'm going to teach you how to make a baby. So people who draw little kids, and you see it all the time in ads and stuff, they look like little tiny adults, and because they haven't learned how to make a baby yet. So you're going to go like, we know this already, but here's how you do it on paper. I'm going to do this big so you get this picture. So I'm going to do the head. So always starting with a circle. But you know how over there I drew that cross line so I could do the eyes and the mouth? And there's a question? No, there's a time. Oh, well, that's good, because so I have 10 minutes, so this is good timing. Great, happy to know that. So when we draw that cross for a baby, the secret is just that. That's it, that's the secret. Make note. Because the baby, they have those different shaped heads. So the minute you do it, and you know, yesterday we talked about Mickey Mouse and the shape of Mickey Mouse and how that worked. This is why the symbols that you draw, the characters that you draw, pop right away. They send a message, because this is really simple, and yet it says baby, and it says cute. So even if it's an evil baby, it's cute. Funny how it works that way. Works too with animals. So and the rest of the baby, you could draw with shapes. So, and you know how to do that. You just make the shapes different. So I was going to show you some, and this is just, let's see if I can do this. See if you can see this. I was doing this comic strip about global warming. Oh, this is a picture of Travel Life magazine that Amy the agent was in. I found that online today. So that it was a real magazine. And let's see here. Come on. Okay, go back. Okay, so I'm going to talk about this character here. I have model sheets for her. This is Seattle Susan. So in this comic that I was writing, it evolved from like a one-page comic to a 5-page comic, which was a good thing, because I got paid a little bit per page, and I got to do it in color. And can you all see that? Pretty well. It's not, I mean, it's okay if you don't, but the thing about her was that I only used 6 versions of her in all the 5 pages, and just used her when I wanted. I put her in pieces if I needed her to do that. It was interesting that I could use just those few gestures, but she didn't even have a name at first. I was gonna call this comic strip Safe in Seattle, and then somebody told me that my title of my story gave away the ending. So we had to change it. So I changed it to Seattle Susan Speaks Out. So, you know, right there, I had to make her a character. And so this is a character that I designed pretty much the way you're seeing me design her. But I gave her, you know, you see people like this all the time. I wanted her to be generic. I didn't, so she doesn't have like long hair, because I think long hair says something about, she's more conservative than somebody who has long hair. And she's wearing her earrings, and she's kind of covered up, but she's trying to be sexy, but she's really doesn't really do it, but that's okay, because that's not her thing, because she's talking about global warming. And and her name is Susan. You know, what could be more generic than that? And so I just wanted to show you these because it's recent, and I designed these characters, and these characters were in every single panel. It was all it was them walking through the world, talking to each other. And so this guy is her drone boyfriend / husband, and he's clearly a college professor. You know, he's wearing a scarf. His coat's probably corduroy. I mean, he's completely generic. He's only grown a beard because it's COVID. And also all the other guys are growing beards. So he had to be the straight man to her discussion. So that's the part he played. That's why I'm calling him a drone, because he's just there. And it's a really nice kind of character to write, because they're good for coming up. He comes up with the punchline in the end. When this book comes out, it's Joyce Farmer's book. I think there's another editor, and it's not out yet, so I can't tell you to go see it. But anyway, so those are characters that I have designed recently, but there was a lot of thought behind those actors in there. I knew where they were coming from. I knew what they did, and I don't know. I hope that you all think that way too. So there's that, and then the other thing is that your characters, those characters, I can use them for the rest of my life. I can use them all over the place, and they can evolve with time. Like right now, she thinks global warming's fine because Seattle's just going to be a nice place to live. And he's like, no, you're crazy. And so he's just there to go like, yeah, that's not a good idea. And then in the end, they find themselves in this encampment where they have long lines to get food, because everybody's moved to Seattle. So that's the punchline. And so I have a note here to tell you that I have another comic strip called Dating with Dogs. Pretty much evolved the same way. I tend to do these women as characters because I are one. But I don't do much. What do they call it? Autobio stuff, because I reveal a lot in my comics, and I don't really want people to trace it back to me exactly. So anyway, so that is pretty much what I have time for, and I really would like somebody to have a question for me. Oh, good. Okay.
So how do you consider? I'd like to hear a little more about how you consider what clothes you're putting your characters in the context of the story.
Thank you. I've been asked how I come up with the clothes that my characters are wearing in this story. You know, sometimes that's easy, because if it's a period piece or something like that, it's you do research. But yeah, because clothes are so much a part of the character, and clothes, jewelry, shoes, and a lot of times I rely on other people, or I picture somebody that I know, because my characters are really lifelike. But even if I was drawing bunnies or I don't know, Bambi or something, I guess that I would be looking at fur then. But maybe, you know, people put clothes on their cats, you know. And then, like if I was doing a cat character, you know, I would give it a little outfit, you know, with especially the bandana. Cat in a bandana, what does that say? Color of bandana is going to say something about the cat's owner or the cat. So that's why it's just good to really, you know, I'm not telling you a specific thing. I'm telling you to think about it. So, and I'm not telling you, I'm asking you to think, because I want to read what you produce. So, any other questions? I bring them in on time, under budget and on time. And thank you guys for coming, and thank you for working with me and cooperating and being great. I really appreciate it. And thank you.